It is the first episode of August for Pigskin Frenzy. And guys, what better way to kick it off with a very special guest, right? Just to get ready and get into high gear with college football, right? I'm so pumped up. I'm fired up. We've been hyping up this episode for the past few weeks. I'm ready to rock and roll, and we are fired up for college football, just zeroing in on it. We're going to talk about the greatest rivalry in college football. And what better way to do it than with our very special guest here in a little bit, and we're going to talk about him in a minute. Yahoo Sports senior writer Jay Busbee, author of Iron in the Blood. Guys, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris. And whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, Apple, follow, share around with others on all platforms. The website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. We also have X and Instagram at pigskin_frenzy. Guys, big show today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, and we are so just fired up about it. I mean, we've been hyping it up for the past, few weeks, right? On social media, on the show. We have author of Iron in the Blood, How the Alabama versus Auburn Rivalry Shaped the Soul of the South, Yahoo Sports senior writer Jay Busbee on the show. Jay, how are you, man?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. And we were just talking, me and you've been in constant communication the past few months, and we're talking about, the managers and book agencies. We were talking about just, okay, the Iron Bowl book, the Iron in the Blood book, and we're going to get to that in a minute. So I'm very thankful that you came and just were willing to talk about the book with us. I read the book, guys. It's good, and it's on sale August 26th, wherever books are sold. So just plug there, read the book when it comes out. It's going to be awesome. We're going to dive into the book here in a little bit. But before that, I wanted to ask you, just for the audience, just to get to know you a little bit more too, what's your life outside of sports media? Just talking about that, just talking about what is Jay Busbee like outside when it comes to not writing articles for Yahoo Sports and writing books?
Oh man, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I have no life outside sports media. I'm a complete. No, it's I am very fortunate in that my personal and my professional life tend to overlap. I love writing. No matter what it is. I've been very fortunate to make a good living at it. And when I'm not writing sports, I'll write a bunch of other things. I also have a newsletter outside of Yahoo called Flashlight and a Biscuit that focuses on Southern topics, whether it's the strangeness of Lake Lanier or Jimmy Buffett or where the Diablo sandwich in Smokey and the Bandit came from, fun stuff like that. But yeah, I live in Atlanta. I have lived here for God knows how long. I was raised in Atlanta, moved away for a bit, went to college in Williamsburg, Virginia, went to grad school in Memphis, and then made my way back here. So I've been in the South for most of my life. And that brings us up to right now.
Absolutely. And growing up from the South, I understand. It's really nothing like it, it seems like, especially living in Atlanta and everything. I've been through Atlanta. It's a lot of traffic. Not going to lie.
It is.
A lot of traffic. So it really is. What made you want to become a sports writer? I mean, that's a really good question that I have. As I thought about that for a little bit, you love writing, but now you're, in sports media and sports writing. What made you just have that itch to you know what? I want to do this as a career and professionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the sports. You can tell any kind of story you want. That's the great thing about sports is that there's such a huge canvas. You can tell stories of history. You can tell stories of humor. You can tell stories of mathematics and analytics. You can tell stories that are heartfelt. You can tell stories that will enrage you. You can tell stories of social justice. Whatever you might want to, whatever kind of story you want to tell, you can tell it against the sports canvas. I have never held to the idea that to stick to sports, because there's no such thing as really sticking to sports when you are focusing on writing about more than just the box score. If you want to stick to sports, read the box score and that's it. Once you start bringing in anything, whether it's the quarterback who fumbled in a crucial moment, or the rookie who comes up and hits a home run in the bottom of the ninth, you are exceeding the realm of sports, and you're entering the world of human connection and human interaction and human possibility. And that's what I love about it. It's just it's sports binds us all together in a way that we can't find much else. and the live element of sports, the fact that we don't know what's going to happen from minute to minute, from second to second, that's what makes it dramatic in a way unlike any other. So it's an element of our society that is unlike any other right now, and so that's always attracted me, and that's what keeps me coming back day after day.
Absolutely. And for me, every time I'm on Pigskin, I talk about college football just brings people together, right?
Yes.
And I'm just this is the college football show, right? So it just brings people together. It brings people closer, whether you're Ole Miss fan or State fan, your rivals and your button heads. It still brings people together either way. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Well, I mean, college football is all of that stuff just turned up, not to 11, but to 23. College football is simply the best sport just because it has such a high percentage of absolute psychopaths. And I'm not just talking about in the stands. I'm talking about on the sideline. I'm talking about with a whistle. I'm talking about on the line. You have the most extreme elements of human society all gathering there, either wearing red or blue or orange or whatever it might be, and wanting to kill that audience on the other side of the field. And it's just this kind of bizarre love-hate triangle that's going on there that you can't find in any other sport. The depth of passion. You might be able to find it like in English Premier League soccer. They start to get there. If you've ever seen European soccer, they start to get to that level of college football, but there is no other sport. I will take college football over any other sport in America in terms of the absolute psychopathic passion, and I say that with the highest possible praise.
And I went to the Egg Bowl one year, and when I went
And
to
you
the Egg Bowl,
survived?
and I survived. I did.
Good.
So I went with I think it was my cousin and her husband, and we were sitting there. And we were going. It was like Thanksgiving night, really cold. I walked through, and I saw some fans, and they were like barking at each other, and I'm like, This is college football right here. There we go.
That's it.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about college football here at the end. Kind of a fun question because I want to get your thoughts on the season coming up.
Yeah.
For later on. But what's it like as a sports writer working for Yahoo Sports? I think it's an interesting dynamic because Yahoo Sports is a premier company, right? It's Yahoo, right? So
yeah.
We all have those Yahoo emails, right? So what's it like working for them and writing for them? And what are some of your fondest moments working as a reporter for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tremendous. I've worked for them since 2008. I got started. This is a kind of a testament to starting at the bottom. They hired me to write blog posts for their NASCAR blog long ago. It's since gone by the wayside in a number of corporate renewals. But I started out just writing a couple of NASCAR posts a week and worked my way up to where I am now. But it's been tremendous. I mean, Yahoo has sent me literally all over the world to cover sports. I've been at all of the major, this is where I get into the kind of humble bragging or maybe just straight bragging element of it. But I've been to the Super Bowl, the Kentucky Derby. I've covered multiple Olympics, and it's tremendous to be able to do that, to be able to experience the world. I was in China during the pandemic behind the intense security that they had. I was in Paris last summer for the Olympics, just one of the most beautiful, obviously the most beautiful city in the world, and then seeing the Olympics set against that backdrop. I've been at Super Bowls, I've been at Daytona 500s, and all of that has been working for Yahoo, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me, and it's made it so that I can see the country and the world, and I never take it for granted. I absolutely never take it for granted. I remember one of the first times I was at the Daytona 500, might have been the very first, and they were talking about giving media members pace car rides around the track. And Daytona International Speedway, if you're not familiar, where they have the Daytona 500, 2.5-mile track. It's enormous. And I was there, and there were a couple of media members grumbling, "Oh, I don't want to get here that early. I don't want to have to show up early for that." And I'm thinking, what are you doing? This is something that everybody in those 100,000 people, any of them would kill for this opportunity. So I not only, I took advantage of that opportunity. I rode around the track, and I try to do that. Try to approach the job that same way, not taking it for granted, not looking at it as a cranky media member. I don't believe I've ever complained on Twitter about American Air losing my baggage or anything like that some of the more cranky members of my profession seem to do. So I've been very fortunate. I've been very happy, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And you mentioned one thing that I wanted to go back to when you said that.
Yeah.
China during the pandemic, was this like 2020?
2022. 2022.
Okay,
Yes.
so I mean, still
Um,
fairly new and fresh.
Yeah, it was. China was determined to have the Olympics, even if they had to lock everybody down, which they did. I mean, we literally were under armed guard the entire time. We would go in we'd be in our hotels. We'd be restricted to our hotel. They had, fences with concertina wire and armed guards, and we'd have to every single morning we would have to get our noses swabbed to check to see if we had somehow tested positive for COVID. Then we'd have to get on the bus. We rode through the streets of Beijing and we could look out at the people, but we couldn't get anywhere near them. And then we had to have masks on constantly. And it was, you know, what you think now about masks and so forth, it doesn't matter. This was their rules
Yeah.
and their games, and they set it up that way. And so it was as I've said before, it was a tremendously unique experience that I never want to live through again.
Oh man, I remember because it brings me back to when I was covering a game before I even started Pigskin. I was doing Millsaps College in Mississippi, and it was during COVID. So they were like, "All right, we're going to go to this room. We're going to line everybody up, and we're going to swab everybody in case they test positive for it. And if you test positive, you got to leave. We're going to kick you out." And
Right,
I
right.
was sitting there going, I feel kind of tense. Like I don't like doing this. This is not fun at all. So I could only imagine being there in China during that is just quite unique.
Just imagine, okay, this is what we had to go through every morning. We're so far off topic of college football, but it
Oh, I
doesn't matter.
know, but you know,
It's imagine this little box, okay, this box, that's like the size of I don't know, a dressing room or something like that. It's a plexiglass box.
yeah,
In that box is an attendant. They reach through these holes cut in the box, and they have gloves. They'll treat radioactive material. They reach through. You're standing on the outside of the box. They reach through and they take this swab and shove it in your nose right there, and then take it for sampling. And you have to do this every single morning. And they are not delicate with this. They were trying to paint the inside of your brain.
no,
So it was again something I do not wish to live through. It's a great story. I love the story, but I am more than happy to be done with that one.
And speaking of stories, as you mentioned stories, let's move on to books and let's talk about
Absolutely.
as we start going in deeper into college football later on, but going into the books. What's the process like on writing a book? Like just talking about like what goes into writing a book, just in general.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much involved. Obviously, the snap and stupid answer is you just write a lot, but there's so much more than that. You've got to make sure, first of all, that it's a topic that people want to read about. Because I have ideas for books that would thrill me, but that no one else is going to want to read about. I mean, it's just the kind of thing where I'm not sure how many people would want to deep dive on the Sammy Hagar Van Halen years, but I would be all over that. But you want to find a topic that people are going to be interested in, and then you put together a proposal. You take it to an agent. Your agent shops it around, and hopefully you find a love connection there with a publisher. But it's a long process. It's a long process trying to convince people that A, this is a book that people want to read, and B, that you are the person to tell it. Those are the two initial hurdles that you've got to get over. That you have the skills and the abilities to do this. And then once you get the go ahead from the publisher, then the first part of the work begins, which is you want to become an expert in your material, in your field, and you want to find everything possible. I kind of subscribe to the idea that you have to dig in as many places as possible, talk to as many people as possible, look into as many files as possible, read as many books as possible, whatever you can possibly do. And when you're trying to cover the material as thoroughly as you can, but also you want to find those little details, those little elements that people may not know about. Everyone knows about the kick six, but everyone might not know about the circumstances that were going on in the booth while Auburn's two commentators were calling the kick six. So you want to find out what those little details are. So you want to find out all of the little elements like that, things that run throughout the book, because that's throughout the story, because people know the big picture here. People know that Alabama has won all these championships. People know that Bo Jackson and Cam Newton played for Auburn. They know this stuff. You don't need to educate them so much on that. You want to give them a sense, a feel of what it's like to not just be a part of this rivalry, but understand why it is significant, and understand what makes people so passionate about these schools. And there are different reasons. The people have different needs for what drives them. But this is what you're trying to do with a book is just basically cover the entire sky. You just reach to the horizons, and then you go back and edit, you trim and trim and trim and edit, and then you hopefully come up with something that is compelling from beginning to end.
And it's like you're painting a picture almost, but with words.
Yes,
So
yes. I mean,
that's a good way to put it.
I very much believe in that. I am absolutely respectful of numbers and analytics, but I'm a letters guy. I focus on that, and I think that to go back to the idea of stories, I think that it's not enough to know that, all right, Bear Bryant, he got his name from when he was a kid wrestling a bear in a carnival, which there's all kinds of different versions of that, but I think it's a lot cooler to be in that theater with that kid, walking up to the stage with that kid, in the ring with that kid as that bear is wrestling around, right there next to next to that bear when the muzzle comes off the bear and the kid realizes, oh my God, I could get killed right here, and then the kid takes off, and I think it's much cooler to tell it as a story and as narrative than as this kind of dispassionate sort of encyclopedia Wikipedia entry, because that's what keeps people interested. And as you know well, what you want to do is keep people interested on and on and on, not just give them the basic facts, but tell them how they got there. You don't want to, what you told me about the Egg Bowl right now. You didn't tell me a damn thing about who won. Doesn't matter who won. You saw fans barking at each other. That's what's so much more important, particularly about the Egg Bowl. So that's what I try to do in the book, and that's what I've hopefully gotten across.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really about just having the moments, right? And just having those words, having those moments, and just like a deep story almost. Not really just a story, but having a detailed, deeper story. So, which brings me to your book, Iron in the Blood. Guys, again, I've read it. I'm going to promote it again. Read it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. It's out now. I mean, it's out August 26th, wherever books are sold, right? So August 26th.
Yes.
Guys, it's a phenomenal book. And my question to you is, what led to you writing Iron in the Blood? Like, what picture, like, in your mind, like, what was there a specific game of the Iron Bowl that led you, okay, I got to write about this rivalry? Like, what led you to that?
I mean, the easy thing is to say is the kick six, but that kind of was it. I was not a fan growing up of either team. I had an Auburn baseball cap, but that was about it. I grew up in Atlanta, so I was closer to Georgia and Georgia Tech. That was more the rivalry. Clean old fashioned hate was a little bit more in my backyard. But I remember I was watching the kick six with my dad, and we had my brother on speakerphone because he was driving somewhere, and we're just we're talking with him, and then they set up the story of the kick six where Nick Saban calls a timeout with 1 second left, sends out a field goal unit to try and kick a field goal to win the game, and then it gets run back. Spoiler, gets run back all the way. Auburn wins the game. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, finish in college football history, just because of everything that was involved in it. So my dad and I are watching this. My brother's on speakerphone, and none of us have any dog in this hunt, and yet this is happening, and my dad and I start screaming and just yelling, and my brother, poor guy, is thinking that there's like a tornado that's hitting the house. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? And we're just screaming, oh my God, oh my God, oh my, and just hollering. And I mean, that's what everybody across the country was doing. Certainly everybody in the South, and certainly everybody in Alabama was doing that. And so that always kind of stuck with me. I mean, even though that was well over a decade ago, that always kind of stuck with me, that something that can inspire that level of passion and that level of just exuberance in everybody, regardless of whether you're a fan or not. There's something there. There's absolutely something there. Then you add on that, you layer on top of that everything else that was going on with the universities at that time, from Toomer's Oaks to Cam Newton to Nick Saban, all of it all delivered to a tornado that devastated Tuscaloosa. That all layered on top of it. Then you add in the history here with these two schools that were so significant in Southern history, not just in terms of the civil rights era, which they were preeminent, but in the era of Reconstruction after the Civil War. All of these elements just kept adding on, and it made this rivalry more than just two football teams. This was more than just two schools that meet every year, and knock heads, and then they go on. There's that element definitely, but there's so much more to it, and there's so much more that is so fascinating from a historical perspective, from a social perspective, from a fan rivalry perspective. all of it just makes it fascinating to me. And so that was 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, you know what? I guess it was coming up on 3 years ago when I finally finished off the proposal and said, all right, we gotta do this here. So let's get this going.
And it was a very detailed book too. So like I keep saying that, but it's very detailed, and I said that off
Thank
camera
you.
too. So it's very detailed. A lot of research went into it, and you could tell like when I read the book, and this is just my honest take, I felt passion there when I read it. Like I felt passion. I felt like this man loves this sport. So I was
Well,
like
thank you.
reading it, and I was like just as much as I and everybody else across the country, this man loves this sport. So when I read it, I was just amazed by it. Rated out of 5 stars, 5 out of 5. That's all.
Hey, all right.
That's
Thank
all
you,
I
my
got to say. I
friend.
mean, it really is that it's that good. I'm just being
Thank
honest.
you. Thank you. I mean,
Uh,
the goal is, we know, we both know what it's like. We all know what it's like. Everybody listening and watching this knows what it's like to be at a tailgate at a college game
yeah.
and to just be hanging out and telling stories and saying, hey, you remember this story? You remember this guy? Did you know about this? Oh my God, how about that? You remember that play? And that's kind of the feeling that I wanted to evoke here. And I wanted to give Alabama and Auburn fans, a chance to talk a little bit of trash to one another. But I also want to give people who are not a part of the rivalry a sense of why this is so big, a sense of why this is such a significant rivalry and why it's so important that people can understand, what the importance is here. It's something that I think we can all find someone to root for. And, obviously a lot of people go for Alabama for bandwagon reasons. A lot of people go for Auburn because they don't like the bandwagon, but whatever it is, you can find a rooting interest in this rivalry.
And people were born into it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And that was in the book too. I read some of it. I was like, yeah, people are born into this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then I told you off camera, so my dad's a huge Alabama fan. So my dad grew up an Alabama fan. For my listeners who their newer listeners who are tuning in, my dad was an Alabama fan. He wants to be Auburn every year. Let me just put it that way.
Absolutely.
That's his main goal is to be Auburn every year. He goes, okay, that and Tennessee. That's who he wants. That and Tennessee. And
Absolutely. That third Saturday in October. Yep.
exactly. And he just values this rivalry so much. So again, and this is a thank you for writing this book, because it brings a little bit of a new perspective on the rivalry and how, like, guys, it's significant. Like it's not in a better wording here. It's not like, okay, it can't be like, okay, life or death or anything like that, maybe, but it's significant enough to where it's like, all right, man, this is serious. This is like borderline. This is religious serious, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, yeah. Think about what religion. Not to impugn or impinge on religion in any way, but
no,
think about what religion is. It's a series of faith-based decisions, putting your hope in something outside of yourself. In this case, instead of the Almighty, you're putting your faith in 11 undergraduates there on the field to be able to get the job done. But it still works. And I think that also what works is that feeling of community, just like when you feel something when you're in the pews and your friends and neighbors and family are all around you, you feel something when you're in the stands and your friends and neighbors and family are all around you. It's not a far jump from one to the other. And I think that's what makes college football so significant. And then also on top of that, you've got a definite rival, whether it's Satan or whether it's that school across the state. You've
right.
got a definite rival there, and it all. And in a time when there's a lot of deep division along partisan lines right now, it's kind of refreshing to look back and say, you know what, we just hate we hate the other team. That's it. And they're almost exactly like us, but we just hate them because they're from over there. But then, even you see it when the SEC makes a national title game, you'll have Auburn fans cheering for Alabama sometimes. And then, but everybody will cheer for their squad against the Big Ten or whoever, whatever infidels might be out there.
That's a good word. That's a good word to put it. That's a unique word to put it. I like that. So what from writing the book, what are some of your moments? And you mentioned the kick six, but
Yeah.
what are your personal favorite Iron Bowl memories that you have seen, like from covering the game itself?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different little elements to it. I think that one of my own personal favorites is that there were a lot of games like that I was too young to see in person, or that were happened before I was born. But and let me just tell the Auburn fans straight up. Look, the book starts with the kick six. I'm gonna spoil it here for you, but it starts with a recitation of the kick six. We all know that Alabama has more titles. We all know that Alabama's kind of the big dog here in terms of titles. But Auburn, this is what makes it so fascinating. Auburn can get under Alabama's skin like nobody else. And so Auburn fans can and should take pride in the fact that they scare Alabama in a way that Alabama doesn't scare them. So that's one of the things to remember. And also, as I tell this story, I was at in a couple of years ago when Auburn had Alabama down to 4th and 31, and they called the play Gravedigger, and Alabama runs the play. Jalen Milroe finds Isaiah Bond in the end zone. Bang! Alabama ends up winning the game. It wasn't a last-second play, but it was very close. Alabama ends up winning that game and comes very close to getting back in the national championship game when it lost in overtime to Michigan and right after that. So that was another one of those plays where it seemed like all hope was lost, and then all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere, this game turns into something ridiculous. Now, generally when that happens, generally when something goes sideways, it's Auburn that benefits from it. It's not Alabama. In the Bama punt or in the comeback, it tends to be Auburn that wins because Auburn is an absolute chaos bringer of an institution. But every so often it works in Alabama's favor too.
And and I don't know if you've noticed this. This is kind of weird. I just thought about this. Have you noticed when Auburn, and I don't know why I thought about this, and I've seen this in the past, when Auburn is ranked and they play Alabama and Jordan Hare, at least like from 2017 onward, Auburn usually wins.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Like, am I the only one who's thought about this? I thought that was kind of interesting. Like when Auburn's ranked in Jordan Hare, they beat Alabama.
Yeah, I mean they do very well. I mean the first time that they managed to get to because younger fans may not know, this game was played in Birmingham for the longest time. It was played at Legion Field in Birmingham, and Auburn basically wrestled it out of Birmingham because they argued correctly that Birmingham was about 80-20 in favor of Alabama fans. It's closer to Tuscaloosa. It's easier to get to than Tuscaloosa, and Auburn managed to build up the stadium to the point where it was large enough to handle Alabama and Tennessee and other schools like that. And the first time they did it back in 1989, Alabama comes stomping in there, big tough Alabama, and then lo and behold, Pat Dye and Auburn, bang, drop a ton of bricks on their head and win the game. And so that's what I mean by the Auburn's chaos magic. They managed to go and make. That's why you can't ever not watch the Iron Bowl. It might be like a 48-28 blowout or something like that. It might be something routine, but you never know. It might possibly be one of these ones, like a 4 overtime game like back in 2021 that Alabama won. I mean, you never quite know. So it's that's what makes the game so much fun because Auburn just loves it. Auburn just loves throwing the chaos in there because they expect to lose. But then Alabama dreads this game because there is zero upside for them. Unless they've had a bad year and they want to ruin Auburn's year, which has happened, there is zero upside for Alabama. And so that kind of terror that plays out in the heart of the Crimson Tide faithful that takes the game to the next level.
Bryant-Denny Stadium has some magic to it, and I just thought about this too. See, when you're bringing this stuff up, there's a bunch of questions just popping in my head.
Absolutely.
Bryant-Denny Stadium has some magic to it, but it seems like a lot of the magical moments happen in Jordan Hare.
Yeah, it does. It does seem to work out that way. I mean, going to Bryant-Denny is kind of like, I don't know, going to the principal's office. You know how it's going to go down.
Yeah.
They start playing that pregame. They start playing Requiem for a Dream. They start playing that Bear Bryant where he's just he's got his voice that's just rumbling the earth and showing up on seismographs and stuff like that. It's a place that's pretty terrifying to play, and it's pretty overwhelming to play when Alabama is winning, which has been the case for a long time. So, yeah, it doesn't quite have that element of strangeness, although it has happened that Auburn has jumped in there and snagged a few. But, yeah, there's definitely something to be said for the imposing majesty that is Bryant-Denny Stadium.
And then Jordan Hare just seems like there's a lot of magical moments too, like the kick six.
Yeah. You go there and they will replay until the end of time. They will replay the audio of the kick six. Auburn's going to win the football game. They will replay that forever. The fans jumping over and disappearing into the hedges. They will replay that forever, and they absolutely should. It was based on what was involved, how it went down, all of the elements that led up to it. You can make a real good argument. You'd have to argue hard against it being the best play of in college football history, just because of everything that led up to it. And the only blemish, the only tiny blemish on that, is that Auburn wasn't able to win the national championship. They took Florida State right down to the line and couldn't quite get it done. But if Auburn, and it's not a knock on Auburn. I feel like every time I say, I start talking about this, I've got to justify how much I love both of these schools, because they I know that fans are going to be like, oh, you were biased against us, screw you. I love both of these schools, and I love them for very different reasons. And they both have so much to recommend them, and they make college football so much fun. And nothing is better than when both of them are good. And that was what the kick six was. They were both in the top four. They were both right there in the heart of the championship battle. So that's the kind of thing that you want to see.
And you can say whatever you want, man. I know you're not knocking. I'm just saying you can say whatever you want about whatever. It's the truth, It's just like they came down to the wire, and it just Jameis Winston got them in Pasadena.
Yep.
So I remember watching that game. A unique one as well, because there was some magic in it. Jordan Hare 2019. I watched that one the other day. I found that first. I was scrolling through my Pigskin Instagram I was working on there, and then all of a sudden I saw a clip from the 2019 Iron Bowl. And that clip, and I don't know if you were there for this one, was the interception, the Najee Harris behind the back pick six.
Right.
Only, only the Iron Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is every single time you will see elements like that, things that you just and the players, will tell you to a person how much it means to them to play in these games. They will say, to be a part of that is unlike any other, even if they lose, but, obviously, especially if they win. But, I had several players tell me that in the, they would go pro, they'd be playing the NFL, and people would come up to them like, what's it like to play in the Iron Bowl? And you can guarantee that now, after they've graduated and after they've moved on, after they've returned to private life, everywhere these guys go, whether they're at work, whether they're, at a restaurant, whether they're on the golf course, people are coming up to them saying, what was it like in the Iron Bowl? How did it go for you? Right now, Auburn's feeling real good. Alabama's feeling real good because they've got a nice run against Auburn. And so you've got an entire class of Alabama fans that have never lost to Auburn. And it went the other way a few years back, where Auburn, runs off a whole bunch of wins in a row. We had one for the thumb that Tommy Tuberville famously said. And then it took Nick Saban to break that streak. So, it's seeing how this rivalry ebbs and flows and how it breathes is one of the most fascinating elements of this entire story.
And one key memory before we move on, because I know we got a couple more questions left too.
Sure.
Key memory that I thought about, and I want to get your thoughts on this one. 2010 Iron Bowl. And It was the comeback, as they call it.
Right.
What were your thoughts watching that game and seeing it live?
Yeah. Cam Newton might be the most impressive college football player in history. I mean, this guy was an Avenger, just absolutely could not be stopped. And the fact that there were all sorts of allegations about, whether he'd been paid to play, whether he'd been paid to enroll at school, that was all part of it. But the simple fact of the matter, it doesn't matter how much you paid the guy, and based on what they were saying that he was paid, it was a bargain, especially in current NIL terms. But it doesn't matter how much he was paid or not paid. He had to deliver on the field, and he did. He was ungodly. He was the fastest dude on the field. He was just about the biggest dude on the field. He made the decisions that he had to make. He had the arm to handle it. He had the legs to handle it. Everything that he did was he was chess and everybody else was checkers. He was just absolutely annihilating everybody on that field. Alabama got left in the dust, and they were one of only many that year. It was a shame that we didn't see more of Cam Newton in college, but probably better, because we had that one amazing season, one perfect season that you would put up against virtually any other season of any other player in the history of college football. I mean, it's to Auburn's good fortune that they've had two such players like this, in addition to Bo Jackson, that just absolutely redefine the game and redefine the position and set this high watermark. And so, yeah, that comeback game was every bit as remarkable as it seems in the time as it seems now in the past. I mean, and the ripples of that went forward, because that was what inspired Harvey Updike to go and poison the trees at Toomer's Corner, and that had a whole cascade effect. Everything sort of led forward from that game. But that's what I mean. It's like one long narrative. It's like one long movie, and that's what is so exceptional about all of this. But yeah, Cam Newton, I have a special chapter dedicated to him and the way that he pulled himself up from his very much self-inflicted mistakes. Went out to Blinn College in Texas, got his act together, and then when he came to Auburn, he was boom, ready to go, and he delivered everything that they could have possibly wanted and more.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's just one of those books. When I was watching the game itself, everybody, when you see a blowout like that in like second by halftime, you're thinking, oh, it's done. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, when I see him start scoring, I'm looking at my dad. I'm like, and I'm little at this point because I'm only 25, just low key. I mean, when I'm little at this point, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I think he's coming. I think they're coming back. And then my dad's like, "No, it's all good. We'll get it." And then
That's a nervous dad right there.
Yeah, I'm thinking they score again. I'm thinking, y'all, they're coming back. Like, look at them. They're doing it. And he's like, "Oh, okay." Well, he's getting a little bit more nervous. And then all of a sudden, when it's that Lundzenkirchen score happened, I was looking and I said, they just came back on y'all. Like, that is insane. Like, and that was for the SEC championship. That was a spot back in the BCS days, the national championship as well. So
right.
Looking at that, just thinking of moments like that, just make the Iron Bowl just so special and magical. So,
yeah.
One question that I got, well, two questions, because we're going to talk about a little bit of an overall college football sense. It's a fun question at the end. Overall, even though you wrote a book about it, in your estimate, tell us why the Iron Bowl is the greatest rivalry in college football. Because I've always said that the Iron Bowl is the greatest rivalry. In your eyes, Jay Busbee's view, why is it the greatest rivalry in college football?
Well, because these are two fan bases that are completely intertwined. You have to live with the other fan base 365 days a year. You can talk about how Alabama doesn't have any pro teams and that kind of stuff. They put all their emphasis on college football. That's fine. To me, what makes this the greatest rivalry is that you have these two fan bases that are intertwined in state, and they have to spend their entire lives with the other team. They can't. It's all due respect to Ohio State and Michigan. They got a border separating them. There's they have their strongholds there. But in Auburn and Alabama, when they come together in Birmingham or wherever it might be in the state, they're always having to look at each other in the face, and they've got to understand. All right, what happens on this afternoon, Saturday after Thanksgiving, is going to determine how my next 364 days go. I'm either going to be able to gloat over that fan from the other school, or I'm going to be hearing it constantly, and that it gets into your soul in that way. It is a part of you. When your team loses, you in a way lose. When your team wins, you feel like a champion as well. And it's diminished a bit because we've got so many levels of playoffs now. That the Iron Bowl itself doesn't quite have the same resonance that it did. Certainly not back in Bear Bryant's day, but there is still that personal pride and that pride that's at stake. And no matter what, Auburn fans will always be able to say, kick six, and Alabama fans will pretend like it doesn't bother them, but, we all know it does. And we're going to have an instance right now. Alabama's riding very, very high, and justifiably so. But we're going to have an instance very soon, and it might come this year, when Alabama's up here, and then Auburn is just going to come and leap up and knock them right off that perch in the Iron Bowl, and bang, that's going to set it all back, into chaos once again.
And that's a good thing that you brought that up, because now that leads me to what I was going to say. How do you see, and before we go to the overall scope of things for college football, how do you see Alabama and Auburn seasons going in 2025 in your eyes?
Yeah, it's a make or break year for both schools. I mean, it really is. It's kind of strange to say that Kalen DeBoer is already in a make or break year after year two, but he kind of is. I mean, this is Alabama fans are notoriously impatient, and they will not wait very long. Especially when he's been given all of the gifts that Nick Saban left him, when he's got Saban still in the building a lot of the time. Alabama fans are not going to be particularly patient because they've got all of the advantages that Saban set up in a way that Saban didn't have when he arrived. It had been 25 years since they won a national championship and almost 50 years since the days of the Bears. So, it was a long, long time. Or, hang on, I'm doing the math in my head. No, it was not quite that long. It was about 25 years or so. So anyway, it had been a while since the days of the Bear. And what Saban had to do was basically build from the ground up. DeBoer didn't have to do that. He's building on the foundation that Saban already had in place there. So, there's not going to be a whole lot of patience for DeBoer. And then down over in Auburn, go across the state down to the southeast there, and Hugh Freeze is in the third year or is coming up on his next year, where it's going to be a situation where everyone's like, okay, we were expecting a lot more than this. We were expecting a whole lot of offensive firepower. We're expecting to get back into the college football playoff picture. We're not there yet. We're hearing a lot of talk and a lot of nonsense about playing golf, but we're not seeing a lot of wins. And we're seeing a lot of blaming the quarterback and blaming the other coaches. We're not seeing a lot of wins. And Auburn boosters, they're absolute lunatics. And I think that I do not fear incurring their wrath because they know it. They know they're lunatics, and they know that they take Auburn football way too seriously. And so they also are not going to be patient. All of this is to say both schools are right now a little bit below where they ought to be and where they want to be. And whichever school breaks out first of the two of them, I would lean toward Alabama because of the foundation that they've got. But, Freeze could step up and surprise. Whichever of those two schools that breaks out is going to have the edge here for the next 5 years, and it's going to be crucial to see.
Yeah, and in my conference semi projections for the SEC, because I do those every off season and in June, I have Alabama at 4th, and then I have Auburn at 12th.
Yeah.
So that's So that's that's the
it's
dynamic,
tough. It's tough to
right?
argue with that. Yeah, it's tough to argue with that because the SEC is tough, man. The SEC is so tough. So it's going to be who we got ahead of Alabama. You've got Texas, Georgia, and who we got Ole Miss, or who's you remember?
So my SEC championship for conference standing projections, you may be surprised. I got Texas at 1, winning the SEC championship against LSU.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's arguable. I mean, that's certainly a valid choice there. So yeah,
I just think
I like it.
I just think LSU overall, and this is going to lead us into our overall college football talk before we conclude. I think LSU's just got the roster, and to me, I don't know. You said this is a make or break year for Kalen DeBoer, and you're most likely right because they are impatient down there.
Yeah.
I just think that this could be a make or break year for Brian Kelly.
Oh, I agree.
And he's going to need this year to all right, it's your 4th year, you're loaded, let's do something.
Yeah, I did a story on them not too long ago, and I'm sure that you know this, but they have not won their season opener since Joe Burrow was their quarterback. Joe Burrow was their quarterback. And so, LSU had certainly obviously lost the last 3 under Brian Kelly. So they've got to get their act together. If they can, they've got it all right there. They're another team, another school, another program that's got it all right there. But it's what do you do with it? And if you can't do it, what do you do next? If you can't get over that Texas Georgia hump, what do you do?
Follow-up question before the last question, because you're bringing up things that make me get up with more questions, man.
Good.
Clemson and LSU. Who do you have in the opener?
That's going to be a lot of fun. This is the thing that could come back and bite me, but I am not as sold on Clemson as some people are. I'm not quite as. I'm willing to be. I am absolutely willing to be proven wrong. I have no problem with that. Of these two, I feel like LSU has the edge. What is the line now? I don't have it in front of me right now. Do you know off the top of your head what the line is?
I think, and I can look it up really quick. The last time I saw it was Clemson 2.5, like -2.5.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's at home for Clemson.
Yeah,
and I think that's the issue at hand.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah, going to death, either one of the Death Valleys is tricky. But yeah, I mean, and that seems about right. That I just I'm Dabo's really got to prove it to me that he can handle it in this new NIL transfer portal era. He hasn't quite yet. He's kind of backed into some things. I mean, he has to prove it to me like I'm some sitting up on a throne here. He doesn't need my approval. He doesn't need my validation. But I'm absolutely willing to be proven wrong, but I'm not sold on Clemson just yet. But it's going to be a great game either way. What a day that Saturday is. I know that you've already talked about this, I'm sure, but Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, LSU, Clemson. I mean, this is the kind of stuff it's like starting at the concert with the biggest hit, man. I love it.
And speaking of the overall landscape of college football, week one, like we haven't had a week one like this in a while. Oh, like a long time. Like last year was like, oh, okay, it's okay. Great. But then you're like this year, like, all right, this year, you can't miss it. I mean,
Yeah,
like you said,
yeah.
Bama, Florida State, Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson. Then the weekend, you got Notre Dame, Miami, Tennessee, Syracuse. Talk about the overall landscape of college football in your eyes. Like, who do you have? Because the preseason, the coaches poll came out yesterday. We had the AP poll coming out next Monday. Talk about like who your top five are, like your top teams going into the season, and what are you expecting out of this season so far?
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be fascinating to see a lot of teams how they put it together. And I think that one thing that it's not gonna be an effect. You're gonna see some of it now, but it's gonna be a ripple effect in years going forward. Is just how money is going to absolutely impact the state of the game. And this is not exactly a shock that the teams with more money, the schools with more money, have been able to do well. But the what is new is how above board it can be, so that you can absolutely have a Google billionaire going and funneling tons and tons of money into his particular favorite program or his girlfriend's program or whatever it is. It can all be above board now. You just funnel it through the NIL programs, and it can be done. And that's something that I don't think that the SEC unfortunately has reckoned with, because there are schools in the Big Ten that have a lot more money than the SEC, a lot more money than the schools in the Southeastern Conference, and that is something that, depending on how the regulations go, depending on how the oversight goes, the guardrails and so forth, that is something that you could see being a significant issue going forward in terms of the separation of the two conferences. That said, a school that has never really had to worry about money is Texas, and they have proven that they can hang at this level. They still need to get over the hump in terms of a championship, but they've proven that they can hang there. Georgia, same thing. They have managed to go and put themselves in a position where they are always winning. Those are a couple of schools that I'm always looking forward to. Ohio State, like I mentioned. I want to see what Penn State can do. I want to see what a school like Penn State can do, whether they're able to put it all together. I want to see when Michigan can get its act back together. I want to see how Colorado's not going to be in the national championship hunt, but I want to see how they can handle themselves, in the Deion Sanders era, because he's fascinating to watch. I want to see if Clemson can prove me wrong. I want to see if Miami can stay at its level. I want to see how Bill Belichick is going to do at UNC. I mean, it's just there's never a shortage of storylines in college football, and you can paint them however you want, and that's what makes it so tremendous, is that you can see all of these different elements. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, how is Ole Miss going to do? What are they going to be able to do this year? Is Lane Kiffin going to be able to finally put together a winner that can keep up with his mouth? That's what I want to see, is how these schools are able to do it. And there's so much. It's not quite a zero-sum game, but it's close. If you're doing well, your rival's going to be down here, and if your rival starts to improve, it can be at the expense of you or other of its rivals. And that's what I want to see, is how these, it's all of these folks at the dance all vying for the same one trophy, but also the same square footage of dance floor, and see how it all comes together. And you're right, it starts out the best way possible.
I like how you brought up Ole Miss. That's a very unique thing, the unique season. They lost a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I had them at ninth.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
but still, but think about that. I mean, think about that. Ninth is, you had the ninth in the SEC.
yeah.
Ooh, all right. I like it. But if they can manage to get into the playoff, they can do some damage. And that's going to be its own kind of battleground there. But This is the thing about college football. As much as we, and I'm sure that you and I both feel the same way about this, we don't want it to turn into the NFL. We don't
Right.
want it to be professionalized. And it continues to trend that way. It continues to go in that direction to become more and more corporate, more and more sleek, less and less ragged. And yet they still reel us in, man. They still reel us in. You could say, I'm done with college football. I'm sick of paying all this money for, seat licenses and donations to the athletic department and all that stuff. But then comes around late August and you're like, damn it, I'm back in
Yeah,
again.
they pull you back. It's like the Godfather. It's
Exactly.
like the Godfather Part 3. Just when you thought I
That's
was
it.
out, they pull me back in. It
That's
really
exactly
is.
it. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and like you said, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is an interesting one because I put them at ninth only because I'm so used to hearing, oh, they're going to go 10-2.
yeah.
This is usually how it happens, and then they end up going 8-4, 8-5, 9-4,
Right.
whatever. And I'm thinking, oh, I was hyped and promised this, but
Yeah.
that delivered. So that's my only real issue with Ole Miss heading into this
If they
year.
can, yeah, I don't have their schedule in front of me, but if they can avoid that one stupid loss, that one moronic loss that they always seem to give up at some point, if they can avoid that, then I think they'll be in good shape. But that can be a tall order for a Lane Kiffin team.
Also, and you mentioned Clemson. Clemson's an interesting one. I mean, that's an interesting dynamic in the ACC. I had Clemson and Georgia Tech in the
Yeah,
ACC championship, but I just think Georgia Tech's going to be really a problem for a lot. And those are some unique. That's what's so unique about college football. We can sit here and talk about teams, right? That like, oh, like I want to see what they're going to do. They're catching my eye. Like Colorado, you mentioned Colorado. Who's going to start? Is it going to be Caden Salter? Is it going to be Julian Lewis?
right.
I prefer Caden Salter, but it's either going to be who's it? Who like what teams? You're interested in. Like I'm interested in see what's going to happen there. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Auburn. Like I'm honestly going back to the Iron Bowl. I'm interested to see what Auburn's going to do. I'm very curious. This is a season for Auburn where they got to win, in my eyes, 8 games, at least 8 games for Hugh Freeze's seat to cool down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then you got Florida in that same situation. Billy Napier. People are wondering how he's still got a job, but and he's got another gauntlet to run in terms of teams that he's facing. So yeah, it's just every single week has another potential marquee matchup, and that's what makes it so much fun. There's only a couple of weeks this year. I was looking at the schedule, trying to plot out what games I might cover and what might in person, that kind of thing. And there's only a couple where you've got big monster SEC school, all of them playing Cupcake U. So it's set up well for all just, and they know this. They know how to do this. They've got us hooked in. They know how to keep us interested, and they can weaponize our tradition and our fandom, and we let them do it happily.
Last question, and we'll wrap up. High expectations and low expectations for teams in each Power Four conference. So we'll start with the SEC.
Yeah.
Who do you expect to be all right at the top of their game as advertised? Who do you think is going to be the low expectations? I don't really have any faith almost in them.
I mean, I've already talked about Tennessee, I'm sorry, I've talked about Texas and Georgia, and I think that they'll be right there all the way through. I have high expectations for both of them. Low expectations, I think, Tennessee is going to be an interesting case because they were playing so well early on, and I think that last year they really kind of leveled up. Are they going to be able to continue that with their with losing significant personnel and their uncertainty of their quarterback situation? So I love Tennessee. I love Tennessee fans, but it could end up being a tricky year for Josh Heupel.
And then we have the Big Ten. So high expectations and low expectations for the Big Ten.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that you've got absolutely got the highest expectations for Ohio State, and Penn State really needs to step up. Penn State needs to again. Who am I to be saying you should disappoint me or not disappoint me? But Penn State, I think, needs to get that marquee win. And I wonder how a team like Indiana is going to be able to replicate what it did before. The interesting thing about the Big Ten is that there is a pretty clear differential between those top few schools and then the rest of the conference. You got so much of the rest of the conference there, middling around at 6-3 records in conference, and while the Big Ten might like to talk about competitive equity. At some point, you got to win those daggone games, and you've got to separate yourself from the pack. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams that are wrestling around in that 6-3 mud pit there. They're going to need to separate themselves if they want us to take them seriously.
That's good. That's a good one. And I'm really high on Illinois. So if you want to
Yeah.
ask my high expectations on it, I like Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois is right. They're at the top of that 6-3 pile right there. I think they were the team that they were talking about, potentially being able to fight their way into the playoff last year. But yeah, they need to take that step forward. Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and Joel Klatt, the other Joel, said it best. They're this year's Indiana. And I believe that. I think they can be this year's Indiana. So what about the Big 12 and then the ACC?
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12, I already mentioned Colorado. I unfortunately don't have high hopes for them. I'd like to see what Arizona State is able to do, in the wake of last year, because they had so much fun. I was at that Peach Bowl game with Texas. That was tremendous fun. And I think that's the kind of thing that you want to see. But obviously, Camp Scadaboo is now in the big leagues, and we've got to see what he is able to do. You want to see if Utah is able to step up in a way that they have not been able to in the past. Who are you looking at in the Big 12?
My Big 12 title game is Kansas State Iowa State rematch.
Yeah,
I have high expectations for them. I would watch out for Texas Tech. Honestly, I think the way they recruited in the portal, the way they're recruiting for their program in general is just, we all know it's NIL. We all know. And there's no shy. It's all NIL money. But I'm saying, like, the way they're recruiting at a higher level now. And I'm like, interesting. There's some magic in the air in Lubbock. I got Texas Tech, Arizona State, Iowa State, and then Kansas State. I think low expectations, I would probably assume maybe Oklahoma State. I just think that rebuild's just so tough.
Right.
And that's just for me in the Big 12. I'm interested in Baylor, see what Baylor's going to do. I think Baylor's a unique case. And that's going back to Auburn, or going back to our episode here, Auburn, that's a must-win for them too. So, and then last but not least, the ACC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ACC, it's Clemson's to lose. I think that the interesting team there. You mentioned Georgia Tech. I think that they're a lot of fun to watch and to see, because they're kind of the ACC Auburn, because they're capable of wrecking Georgia's season. And they came within this close of doing that last year. I want to see what's happening with Florida State. I want to see whether they are able to. I want to see if last year the 2-10 season was just an outlier, was just a fluke year. What went wrong, and whether they're able to get it right, because I mean it sure seemed like last year that they were in a hangover after getting shut out of the 14 college football playoff, which they had every right to be upset about. But are they able to get back up off the deck, shake that dust off, and get back to the top of the conference where they ought to be? They're the team that I want to watch. Obviously, everyone's going to be keeping an eye on North Carolina and Belichick. But, and that will be fun, but for completely different reasons. But, Florida State to me is a team right now to watch in the ACC.
I think Florida State's going to be an interesting case. I think it is Clemson's to lose. I think Georgia Tech is my second team, and I think Georgia Tech's going to give Clemson a run for their money. A lot of people are thinking, are you insane? But I just think that they have a lot of talent on offense. I like what Buster Faulkner's doing as the OC there. I'm interested in Miami. I'm going to tell you why. I want to see if their defense gets fixed. That, and I want to see if the 2023 Carson Beck will stand up. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that is true. Carson Beck, what he's able to do down there, after leaving Georgia, and a little bit of a cloud there. Seeing what he's able to do is going to be fun. And there's going to be a lot of people watching from Athens with great interest as to how he performs.
And then one more team, I would say Louisville. That's another one.
Yeah.
I think Louisville's interesting. Louisville's always interesting because it seems like when Jeff Brom's there, they're consistently in it. It's like that itch or that gnat that's flying around you. You can't get rid of it. Like, it won't go away. I think Louisville's like that. And they got a heck of a running back in Isaac Brown, too. So, I mean, I think Louisville's won.
Good.
But
I like it.
Other than that, man, that's all we got for today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Jay, thank you for joining us. And guys, if you like what you saw, guys, subscribe to the channel. Like each episode, leave comments down below. Podbean, Spotify, Apple. All you got to do is share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow about the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college football, trivia questions on Instagram stories. We're going to have a good question for you today. Go and answer today's. There's all things up to date for college football on Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, we're so thankful for you guys tuning in each and every Tuesday and Thursday. We couldn't do this show without you guys and without our Lord and Savior Jesus. Guys, if you want to come to know Jesus, contact me at Pigskin_Frenzy. He is our Savior. We love him, and we're so blessed to do this by him, and we give him all the glory and praise. Jay, again, thank you for joining us. Guys, tune in Thursday. We have Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered coming in on Thursday. Going to be a heck of an episode. We're going to sit down, talk SEC ball with him, and talk about his expectations for teams in the SEC this season. Guys, tune in Thursday. For Jay Busbee, with Jay Busbee, author of Iron in the Blood, Yahoo Sports senior writer, Jay Busbee, I'm Joel Norris. Signing off. We'll see you Thursday. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.